So much. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I love seeing that it's standing room only. As you can see, I'll spare my introduction. You can just go to LinkedIn. But these are the folks you want to hear from. And you probably read a little bit about the backgrounds. You can see the names of the companies. We have an extraordinary conversation in store. I'm going to ask all our panelists to just do a quick 30-second background on their company and their role and their span of control and their business, and we're going to jump right in. So Melanie, let's start with you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Allen. I work for Brooks, running the CMO there. So I have all of marketing globally. So I have our global marketing team, and then our North America team, which includes e-commerce, all digital marketing, et cetera, and a little corporate responsibility, too.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I'm John Francis. I'm currently the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at General Motors. I've been doing analytics for the better part of 30 years now, and telling marketing organizations maybe how they could be doing things different or better. Well, actually, it turns out now I'm going to be doing digital marketing. I'm going to be leaving GM and heading to State Farm Insurance. So now I'm on the hook for how to make the dollars work best, and I'll also have responsibility for digital.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexa Vertaco. I am the CMO at Goop. I sit over brand and creative, digital and performance, e-commerce, and Amazon.
And hi, everyone. I'm Eric Edge from Alaska Airlines. I lead the entire marketing spectrum at Alaska Airlines, including our creative studio, which does the creative product across everything from ads all the way through to design of airplane and product.
Love it.
I should have mentioned, we have an in-house creative team as well. It's going to come up as we probably go through the session. So similar to Eric and Alexa.
Fabulous. That is, please, let's definitely touch on that. And I've had the great pleasure of working with each of these folks as leaders and in their businesses. And we wanted to break the conversation into sort of 3 sections that I think will really hopefully be very helpful for everybody in the audience. One is just organizational readiness and how to think about decision making in this very rapid AI era that we're in. 2, in AI and technology, and then 3, of course, in metrics and the economics. And all these things have to work, and they have to be something that actually moves the economic needle. So Alexa, I want to start with you because, of course, you have a very unique, not only role, but the company is obviously very unique in that there's a lot of startup energy, yet you are very enterprise, and then you have this amazing founder who we both love dearly, who's very opinionated about everything,
Yes.
Which is what we love about her. But tell us about how decisions get made, given that, and how you think about that as a CMO, given the complexity of startup speed, yet being enterprise, very active founder. How does that work?
Yeah, it's an interesting mix, and we also have so many different business lines, but the marketing team services all. So we have Goop Beauty, our own fashion line, our curation, assortment, editorial, and then all of the other sales channels in addition to direct. So we're moving fast. I was just saying to one of your teammates last week, sometimes it feels like we're week to week. We're working, all the time, and this has been a transformational year for us. We rolled out a new look and feel. We migrated over to Shopify. So it's a lot of in-moment troubleshooting, but kind of how I've built walls around that is looking at things constantly through 3 lenses. We have the brand lens, does this fit and serve kind of this new outline we've created for how we want to show up in the world. There's the business case lens. How is it impacting the business revenue? Is it, accretive to that? And then that we do have the Gwyneth lens. So, is this a priority for Gwyneth? Is this something she's bought into and wants to move forward? And usually if something is checking 2 out of 3 of those, we're pushing it forward as priority. And that's kind of like how we roll on a prioritization basis.
That's super helpful. Given how many things all of you have that you could be doing and that you do, I'm curious how to think about killing things. So, John, we'll start with you. Like when you think about this isn't going to work, I need to kill her. What is the process for, and how quickly do you do that?
Yeah, well, this might be a little bit of a sneak preview for the metrics side of it, but being a data and analytics guy, one is just being really disciplined about clarity of what it is you're trying to achieve and what the measurement needs to be, and having a measure of success. So that becomes a lot easier to make those decisions if you can take all the emotion out of it and, well, this is some leader's priority and it's his or her pet baby, if you will, that you have to have that discipline around the measurement and holding yourself accountable to it. And there's a cultural piece too, because it's really hard. And I see this with my own team at times, which is, people who've worked on things that have worked well in the past, and maybe someone got promoted for it, or maybe someone had got a really great end of year review. And so the emotional side of it, which is, it's actually not okay to hold on to things indefinitely. You want to be able to move on, like figure out how to streamline it, operationalize it in a way that's light touch, so that you can then go on to the next thing and focus on that. So part of it's cultural in terms of how do you lead teams through that and think differently. But the other part is very much metrics driven and about performance and holding yourself accountable to that.
I love that you brought up emotion, because it teed me up perfectly for Melanie. We recently worked on something together where there was a lot of emotion in the organization around creative, and you mentioned owning the creative team.
Yep.
And so I'll spin the question kind of both ways. One, of course, how to think about killing things, and how do you have the gumption to not kill things when you've got a lot of emotion? I won't share the story. You can if you wish to, but I had never seen that in 20 years. Building software businesses around consumer brands, I had never seen that kind of strong emotion in an enterprise. And that's not a negative statement. It was just I think it speaks to the power of the moment we're in with AI. So tell us about how you navigated that.
I will say as well, John and I used to work together at Starbucks, and I feel like I was the emotional one, and you were the reality 2 doors down, being like, yeah, that didn't make any money. I'm like, but people were really happy. Well, when we think about, I'll talk first about killing things. We were actually introduced to a framework from Gartner. It's called the zombies, and so now within our organization, we talk about like, where are the zombies? It's these things that we continue to fund. They're like living, but they're just kind of walking around, not doing a whole lot. We're just going through the motions with it, and just encouraging all of the organization within our marketing team to say, you know what, this might be a zombie. And a zombie doesn't mean you necessarily kill it. We do. It's Halloween, October, so it's fine to kill zombies now. But it's the discussion around what would it take to make this no longer a zombie and make it a winner, or should we look at killing it, moving on? It was great at the time, it just might not be great right now. And so we have that discussion about, you can go either way with it, and I think that takes the emotion out of bringing something forward, saying, you know what, I think I have a zombie here. And I got to either make the zombie better, which means I need X, Y, and Z, or this is what would have to be true to be able to make it a moneymaker, or something that really resonates with the runner. Or do we just say, you know what, I'd rather take this off and move these dollars, this resources, and energy someplace else. So then that comes to when we started working together. It was we've worked together for a long time, but most recently with Adora, we have a culture that's very collaborative and consensus driven. So like everybody usually is in the boat and we're all rowing in the same direction. And when this opportunity was brought to us, I had some people that were fully outside the boat and very much raising their hand, like, no way.
Maybe throwing grenades in the boat even?
Yeah, like, no way. We just kept talking about the what if, what's the possibilities. Let's look a year out, 2 years out. Do we think AI and some of the tools that are coming, it was particularly with our head of creative. Our head of creative was very much a no-go.
Over my dead body might have been.
Yeah, might have
phrase that came
something
up.
like that. Yeah. Who never says that. He's
it's
usually like one that goes with the flow
Yeah.
a lot, and he's like, all right, we can figure it out, and he was not there. And so then we just kept talking about it, and we went through just more milestones. Instead of it being, here's the end game a year later, we're going to have creative in market that does X, Y, Z. We just said, let's see if Adora can work with us to see if we can even get creative that we're proud of, that works with our brand, and let's go back and forth and just start to work it. And I think when we signed as a founding member, I think it was pretty clear. I was like, we are likely to never put anything in market. Like, I don't know if we can get there. And that was because of our head of creative, which was, we just labeled him the skeptic. And we're like, you know what? You can be the skeptic in the room. And so for the last year, he's been the skeptic. which has been great. And he's been really hard on, I think, the entire team just to keep making it better for us. So.
And has made the performance that much more powerful, frankly,
so much
right?
better.
The creative's great, it's in market, it's performing incredibly well.
Yeah.
So.
Just a couple weeks ago, we sat in a room trying to figure out which creative was which, and we were wrong many times. It mixed up like creative team creative and Adora AI creative, and both of us got it wrong multiple times.
I mean, AI is real, which we'll get into in our next section. Eric, you know, thinking of new things, Alaska has this extraordinary history, you know, first to do e-ticketing, first to do digital bag tags now. How do you balance everything coming at you? You know, you have a background working in tech companies, so you have a nose for these things. How do you balance decision making when it comes to how many different solutions are coming at you and all these different, you know, the span of control you have and all the teams and their opinions? Like, what's the process like in your company?
Yeah, it's similar to what Melanie said. Like, you know, we're measured on driving outcomes, and so I think if you think of what those outcomes are either consumer centric, but they're very much employee centric as well. There's 30,000 of us that work across the company. Many of them frontline employees who are delivering sort of the Alaska service and care every single day. And it's this interesting balance because we need to deliver the outcomes for the business and to drive revenue for the business. But at the same time, we have to deliver the cultural outcomes that we need. And that means, sort of like you were saying, bringing everyone along on the journey of how we get there. And so, you know, when we look at what we're going to prioritize, we want to make sure it's the best guest experience possible and that our employees believe in it. And when we think about some of the stuff we've done with AI and just sifting through what makes sense, really for us, we have to ground ourselves in two principles. One is that we have authenticity in place. Like, we're an airline. We can't fake place, right? That would be inauthentic to who we are. It doesn't fit our values, and our people wouldn't believe in that. So that's number one. And then the second thing that we need to do is we need to have authenticity in how we are actually positioning whatever that place is to that guest. And so, meaning, you know, we're not going to have, if you think of all the things that AI could do, it could go in and create a beautiful beach image in San Diego with an experience that is inauthentic to San Diego. We're not going to do that, right? We want to make sure that we have the right core and the right base so that everyone can get behind that's authentic to all of you as a consumer and hopefully a guest on our airline. And so that's sort of a filter that we use going into it. What it meant for us as we started to dig into this is AI is really an augmentation tool for us at this point because we have to lead with authentic place. So I use this example all the time. It's a real example we worked on with you all, which is we have a beautiful image of a beach in San Diego. That's great. I would love 50, 100, 200 scenarios of things happening on that beach. I'm agnostic as to what those are as long as they fit those principles that I said. But that beach has to be the beach in San Diego, right? Like, we can't go create something that's not that and then go sell you a ticket to San Diego and you say, oh, that's funny because this doesn't even exist. So those are the type of things that I think we're looking at when it comes to AI and tools. And on the just filtering side, airlines are very dynamic. They're multifaceted. You never know what you're going to wake up to each day. Travel trends change by the minute, and so you may think one region is going to be amazing one year, and it's a different region completely. So we have to be nimble. And as a marketing team across the board, whether it's performance, whether it's in the creative studio, whether it's in brand, we have to be nimble enough to adapt to that, to hear that, to have our ears to the ground, to learn from that, and then to pivot and make those pivot and changes as we sort of go to market.
Yeah, that's what I love about that too is the thought that AI or any technology, it's not binary. It's not, hey, it's authentic or it's not authentic.
Yeah.
It's how do you use it, right? How do you, in our case, we talk about human in the loop a lot. How do you make sure that that's an important part so it's not taking over? John, you're a technologist kind of at your core. And you see a lot. You've lived through, not that you're old, but you've lived through a lot of trends.
I am old.
You've seen a lot of things. What are some things, whether it's in content, whether it's in analytics, and the kind of span that you've been spending all your career in? What are some things that are possible today that have surprised you, that maybe were never possible before? And if you look back 3 years, it's like I never dreamed we would be that you now have done at General Motors or you plan to do at State Farm.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I guess having been a data professional, an analytic professional, the things that probably get me excited are about creating efficiency in terms of how humans do work. And if I reflect on the last 30 years, like deploying data scientists, for instance, to answer very basic questions that may come up from the business. And there's this intellectual curiosity to whether it's about how the business is performing or about your customers. And the challenge that I've always faced is that the business has every right to be asking those questions, and everyone in the company should understand their customer at a very deep level, because that's ultimately why you're there for direct-to-consumer businesses. But the challenge historically has been, well, you've got really, let's just say, well-paid, expensive data scientists working on very low-level types of questions. And everyone's, especially over the last probably 10 to 15 years, talked a lot about data democratization, but that hasn't really proven itself out in the way that I think what we're seeing now, and especially with generative AI and the ability to deploy AI against a massive data that is within an environment that you can now ask natural language questions. And before, you would have to have someone who is skilled not only in understanding the data domains, but also knew how to code. And now we're in a world where now we've created this capability that we're truly democratizing analytics and data and the insights around the performance of the business in a way that now data scientists should be working on the hardest problems for the organization, where you need that specialized skill set. How do you create differentiated capabilities through digital? Or how do we help the marketing organization do better targeting, drive better incrementality?
Yeah, the job has changed so much.
The job has changed. So
like
for me,
3 years, it's crazy.
Yeah. So for me, it may not be too sexy, but I think that is the promise of data democratization really hasn't been realized, I think, until now. And I think a lot of that is due to generative.
Yeah, I love that. You tend to, of course, come at things from, hey, here's what I know we need. Now let me go find the tooling for it. Alexa, you have every possible, whether it's software or not software, people all want to work with Goop. They want to work with Gwyneth. You obviously built a bunch of stuff for Hailey Bieber before that at Rode. So you've had everyone and their mother come to you to try to get you to use their thing. How do you think about like what's real and what's not, and what are you trying to do in AI? How did you even, like in our case, like I've never asked you this, like what made you say, oh, this thing is real, we should give this AI advertising thing a chance?
Yeah, I think most of it is boiling it down to, is this a problem for us, and like is it going to solve that?
Yeah,
like
it's
that
not
was
just like is this cool and exciting and it looks neat? Like, is this actually a problem?
Yeah, like there's a ton, like, Gwyneth, our other exec team, like everyone's constantly, oh, this cool marketing tool, or I met this person at a conference, and I'm just sort of like, we don't have that problem, so we don't need this, is the big lens. But in the case of Adora, like ad creative, we have a hefty paid media spend, and I'm always trying to optimize that, especially as, acquisition costs continue to go up and up. We have a small but mighty creative team, and they give us a lot, but not always enough. And this was, solving a problem for us, potentially giving us hundreds, if not thousands, of images that we weren't getting before, and being able to iterate on that so quickly, like that was the problem you were solving for us.
That's amazing. It's helpful to hear too, because I think sometimes in an era like this, where there are so many new products and so many new capabilities, we all see things that seem exciting, and then you have to sort of step back to like where your organization is and what problems you actually have. I'm curious, Eric, if there's things that, as you think about the problems that you've been solving at Alaska over these years, if there's insights about the guest experience or things that you didn't expect that surfaced themselves, like things where you guys may have had a theory of the case, and then something through the data, through the creative, through the performance, whatever it might be, actually came back and challenged your own assumptions.
Yeah, Alaska's a 90-plus-year-old airline. Hawaiian Airlines, part of the family now, also a 95-plus-year-old airline. And it's really interesting because you have this really deep heritage in each of those brands that are so connected to people and place in a way that, many brands would envy. And I don't say that because I want to be an envied brand, but like that creates a really interesting dynamic when you are thinking about how you evolve and grow these brands, because there is so much rooted in them. And
Starbucks is a lot like that too.
At Starbucks is real. Like, the interesting thing I would say about both Alaska and Hawaiian is that we grew from connecting air-dependent communities. So like we are the mail person, we are the grocery delivery. We bring people to medical, and like that was how we grew, and we expanded out beyond that. That's still core to who we are in the state of Hawaii, as well as in Alaska. But I bring that up because the dynamic that's at play when you think about working with not just one now, but 2 heritage brands, and actually thinking about how you evolve those and how you think of the expression of those and how we carry those in to this next decade, is a really interesting marketing challenge, because you don't want to turn your back on the things that have made you who you are and made the brand who it is today, and the loyalty that we have across both airlines. And at the same time, we need to grow and expand that. You know, we are now flying transoceanic. We're starting London later this spring. We're starting Rome later this spring. That wasn't in the cards originally. And so how do you sort of expand people's knowledge of what the airline is, the global network that we have, and do it in a way that is still true to the brand, but that takes you into this next decade and ultimately into the next century. And that's just an amazing marketing challenge for one brand, and we're doing that with 2.
Yeah. It's so funny. Last night we had this event, and Eric was so nice in Alaska to give away 2 round-trip tickets to anywhere Alaska flies.
Now they're all going to be jealous.
And yeah, we'll come to the next door party. But it was crazy was that the woman who won it in the raffle, speaking about heritage, she came up to me and she said, I grew up in Seattle. Alaska's my hometown airline.
Oh,
and
amazing.
She didn't,
Perfect.
And she didn't realize that you're flying to all these international destinations.
Yeah.
And was so pumped that she gets to take this trip now to all these incredible places. So, given how many things, Melanie, I'm curious how many new things we're talking about. We're talking about all these new ideas and new products and new technologies. I think there's a good chance, and we've been so fortunate to partner together on Amperity, on Adora, on all these like great innovative technologies, and some of them over time just are gonna not be required anymore. And I'm curious how you think about the sustainability of any new thing you bring in, and do you look at a lens of like, well, what should we be taking out, or is it all creative right now? Is it kind of we're all kids in the AI candy store, and you're just grabbing whatever comes up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question for all of us, is trying to figure out what, we want to see that roadmap. And I do think COVID helped us all because we didn't have a roadmap. We didn't know how it was going to unfold. And so we've been kind of anchoring on, okay, what's the framework that we're going to use to be able to just start to help the teams organize around AI and what may be coming. Even just the question of what are the biggest problems to solve, like you said, Alex, like, do we even have this problem? Is this a problem that we think is a good use case? We're focused there, but then how do we just start to think maybe what's that next phase and the third phase, just so that way we're not trying to tackle everything at one time. And we're definitely in the let's just play and test and learn. I think what's great is even this work that we've done with Adora, it's helped us just anchor back on, okay, wait, what are our principles? That idea of human in the loop at all times, understanding what it means for our brand. And as you know, I think early on we saw some things with runners and we're like, no. Runners are real people who are going through really hard things. They, achieve great things. There's emotion on there. I don't know if we'll ever replicate that, but when you think of performance marketing and you think about shoes, like now
these are sick.
That you're wearing those, all of a sudden that colorway is going to become a hot colorway because everyone here is like, gosh, Kabir looks really good in those shoes with that suit.
On a suit, no less.
I know, it looks amazing, but we didn't have the flexibility to adjust to what was happening in real time. So it allows us to stay true to the product. We can adapt to colorways, what we might need to push more of, less of, et cetera. So just that idea of each test and learn and each, I would say, just playing allows us to answer bigger questions that then we're able to apply to something else. But at the core, it is a lot of what Eric said, which is you're trying to manage this heritage of a brand and build it for the future. So I think when I started at Brooks 8 years ago, we were pretty performance marketing driven. We've moved up funnel, and I would say our resources have not scaled at the same rate of our ambitions. And so what this is allowing us to do is go bigger up funnel. We're moving into new categories, so there's some new lifestyle shoes, some other spaces.
I mean, you're taking
apparel.
on Nike and Adidas in some way, whether you're
yes,
in some ways,
you know,
right?
yeah. We're in
I mean,
the
you were this like, oh, we're for runners, and now
Yeah.
it's like, no, you're for everybody.
Yeah.
Like the nerd with the suit. Like
yeah,
you're everybody.
there you go. I don't call you a nerd.
I'll start
You look
running
cool now.
Yeah.
But that idea of how do you balance the heritage of the brand, what the brand's all about, but leveraging the new tools and allowing us to spend the time in the places that are really going to matter for the brand and allow us to just really scale and learn more about runners faster. We're learning so much already within the first few months. I mean, silly things like they like to see both shoes. Like a lot of times we just show one shoe, like one person in action. They don't necessarily need to see the ankle in the shoe. They just need to see the shoe.
And the AI taught you that.
The AI taught us that. Like,
Yeah.
we're like, okay, you know, ankle and shoe or no ankle, just the shoe. So when you get down to the performance, and you think about it as a consumer, it's logical. Once you're down into that space, you're like, I just want to see the thing that I want to buy. And, you know, if I'm attracted to it, I can go ahead and click through. And what we had is one shoe. We took one photograph of one shoe, one colorway, and all of you had to love it. Now I can show all of our colorways in multiple ways and with different headlines, different text, et cetera. And so the speed of that has allowed us to focus on some other brand things while that can take off for us.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You know, I when each of you are sharing these stories, there's just a few minutes left. I want to get to the economics of all this. The thing that I'm really struck by is just how, and I'm not blowing smoke, like your jobs are so hard. Like I could never do any one of these jobs because there's so much complexity and so many moving pieces. And one of which we haven't even touched on yet is just the size and scale of these budgets, right? Sometimes they're not as much as you want, but objectively, and I'm not gonna ask you to share your budget, but I mean, it's a lot of money. And so I'm curious, like and Alexa, I'll start with you, like if you had to get down to one key or two key metrics as a CMO, whether you're the CMO Goop or when you're CMO at Road, or I'm curious in the function, how each of you think about economic value, you think about metrics, given that there's so many cascading, if you just take advertising as one example, right? There's like, well, is it call to action? Is it the sales that were driven? Marco, our CEO, always likes to say that, every, platform will come in and say, oh, well, I drove 50% of sales, and I drove 75% of sales, and I drove 30% of sales. Like, well, you didn't sell 170% of product, like you only sold 100%. So how do you think about all of these, I'm just thinking this like sphere of different numbers coming at you in the context of these budgets, and what do you actually measure, and what really matters?
Yeah, I think obviously depends on your organization's priorities. Right now for Goop, we are very focused on new customer acquisition, so that CAC to LTV ratio is one that we're talking about all the time. Total business ROAS, new customer ROAS. Like when I'm looking at my budget, like those are kind of like the core three, but then also getting deeper into retention of like product-specific repeat rates and like what are we leading with, and also staying very close to those product performance metrics because that informs so much of our marketing strategy. But that's where I'm zeroing in right now. But as it relates to the team, I like to keep them anchored to those as well, because there's all those channel-specific metrics where if you're a channel owner, of course you want to be looking at those, tracking them, evaluating, but keeping them anchored in those top-line business metrics as best as we can, so no one gets too in the weeds and too focused. Like my channel's driving 75% of the revenue. Well, that's not quite true, but more so pulling for an all tides rise together.
Yeah, the Google rep isn't talking them into what they should care about. Eric, how about for you?
Yeah, so I take a holistic view on this. I want to see collectively, is the entire funnel and the entire ecosystem driving a return on the business? If it is, then we're doing something well. You break that down and you start to look at measurement. None of us have totally figured that out. I wish we could. We just put a new MMM model in place, and we're measuring what brand does to actual revenue. And we're seeing that even in a channel and a place where you don't have a goal of revenue, the brand goal is not revenue. It's a nice byproduct, but that's not the goal of us having it in market. We are driving revenue. There is still a return on that. Is that return the same as it is when we get down into performance? No, but it shouldn't be. And I want to look at that holistically and just make sure the organization understands that this ecosystem that we've created will drive that return. It doesn't mean that every single channel is going to be this breakthrough amazing channel on revenue, but collectively they have to work together to do it. So I think just getting more sophisticated at modeling, really getting understanding from the organization in that, and then looking at incrementality. Are you actually driving incremental revenue that you would have gotten otherwise?
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you all for being here. I mean, what an extraordinary opportunity for us, for hopefully the room feels the same way, to hear from people like you that are as accomplished as you are, and frankly, are making really big bets in an era where if you're not making a big bet, you're probably going to be on the wrong side of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.